Good evening, everyone. Welcome back to the Evermore YouTube channel and to the first What's Going On of 2025. Hello, everybody. Thank you very much for joining us tonight. You've got Chris and Mark at the same time as we always do every Monday to ask the question, what's going on? I'll tell you what's going on, Mark. Newcastle United left with the spoils on Sunday, on the weekend, I beg your pardon, and I've never seen a more disappointed Australian since somebody pulled a knife on Crocodile Dundee. What's going on with you, mate?
Oh, I thought you were going to go with a Neighbours reference, to be honest with you.
I was nearly going to go Neighbours, but I just thought I'll go Crocodile Dundee. It's a safe bet. Everyone knows that one.
Oh, good. Anyway, I know I'm good, man. It's been it was an interesting game, wasn't it? Mr. Postecoglou was not happy. And to respond to him, if everything was fair and equal, that they would have won the game. If everything was fair and equal, Newcastle probably could have had 4 in the first half. So, yeah, maybe he's not go there.
Yeah, but we'll get plenty to get stuck into about this match and Ange Postecoglou's comments as well, and the Spurs fans' complete meltdown, which has been pretty interesting to watch as well. So it is quite fun rattling people in the North London fan base. Hopefully, we'll be doing the same thing on Tuesday night as well, but we'll get stuck into that one as well as always. If you are checking us out for the first time, remember to smash that button. Help get us to the next milestone. We're over 9,200 subs now, closing at 9,300 actually, which is an amazing start to the year. We want to try and hit 10K as quick as possible this year. With your help, we can do it. Recommend us to family and friends. Like the stream as well. Always helps with the algorithms and all that jazz. We are live tonight as always, so jump in the comments. You guys, as big a part of the show as me and Mark are, so we'll get as many comments up as we can. We're not a channel that ignores people. If you take the time to comment, we will take the time to pull up your comments as well. So let's get stuck in, Mark. I mean, the first place to start, as we say, is the weekend. 6 shooters, as we've called it. So that's Newcastle United's 6th win on the spin in all competitions. And it was a very different win to the games that we've had over the last few weeks, where we've kind of blown teams away. We've been dominant. We've played some brilliant football. We've gone in front early. Very different situation for Newcastle at the weekend because we went behind really quickly. But Newcastle United showed some real guts and determination, didn't it, to get themselves over the line to get that win in the end?
Yeah, they did. Look, it was a different sort of performance, wasn't it? I mean, the initial fast-paced performance was their first thing, but the backs to the wall performance to kind of see the game over the line was just a different thing to witness. I thought it was. I suppose it was. There was going to be a test along this sort of group of games, wasn't there, where Newcastle were really put under the cosh. They were really going to be tested. And I think Spurs did that really, really well in the second half. They really pushed Newcastle back and had opportunities. But I thought Newcastle defended really, really well. They didn't give up anything. Really, there weren't huge sort of clear-cut chances to for them to take. There was the odd one that Brennan Johnson hit the post, that sort of thing. But all in all, I thought it was a really, really good performance and a thoroughly deserved win.
Absolutely. We've got some comments coming in already. Jay Toon saying, I hear they've run out of salt in North London. So much so, I hear they're going to have to import some from Manchester to grit the roads tonight, which is brilliant. Well said, mate. It has been very chilly out there, actually. So stay safe, everybody, out and about, and certainly on the roads as well. But yeah, I mean, it was very much, kind of backs to the wall type performance from the lads. I mean, we got the goals, and the goals came really well in terms of the finishes and the play that led up to the goals as well. But I mean, the big talking point, Mark, there's no point in us getting around it. Talked about it on post-match, mentioned it on the aftermath as well. Some of the shit I've seen spouted about this by so-called experts who get paid to talk about football is absolutely ridiculous, really. It is. I mean, you got a still image there of the alleged handball, just to pull it back up again. I think you've even got some backup here rules on it, and also a former referee's opinion on it as well. But pull up the alleged handball. So that's from a much better angle, not the one that the Spurs fans decided to use for their own kind of narrative. But you can see Bergwijn, who I thought had a good game actually in all fairness, so he played really well. He tries to curl the ball around the man mountain that is Joe Linton. I mean, that guy is fucking huge, right? If he's running at you at speed, right, either knock it through his legs or keep it on the deck. He's trying to whip it around him. I don't know whether he's misread the position or whatever, but Joe Linton's arm is in the most natural position of your arm would be is down by its side. He's trying to close the ball down. And my take on this, which I'm sure you'll back up in a minute with the rules and everything else, my take on this is if that ball had hit Joe Litton's hand and went straight to Gordon and Gordon scored, I could understand them looking at it going, oh, it's a handball, it's led to a goal. But from that handball, it falls to Bruno, who then has to find the pass. So Spurs have a chance to close that pass off, which they don't take. He then passes to Gordon and then Gordon scores. For me, that handball, as they call it, which is not, it's ball to hand, but that didn't even lead directly to the goal because there's a pass in between. So straight away, you shout handball, Spurs fans, you shout handball, Sky, you shout handball, all that shit, you lot shouting all of that is nonsense because there's a pass in between that actually goes against the whole point of a handball leading to a goal. Am I right?
Yeah, I'll back it up. Handling the ball, law 12. So for the purpose of determining handball offences, we're talking about the boundary of the arm, and I know that comes into the Dan Burn one a little bit later on, so I'm not going to that just yet. But it's an offensive, deliberately touches the ball with a hand or arm. For example, moving the hand arm towards the ball. He didn't do that. Touches the ball with a hand arm when it has made the body unnaturally bigger. He didn't do that. It's down by his side. A player is considered. Oh, and for those that had argued that Joe Linton had moved his hand forward towards the ball. Well, yes, when you're running, that tends to happen. So that's a natural action. A player is considered to have made their body unnaturally bigger when the position of the hand arm is not a consequence of or justifiable by the player's body movement, which is what I've just said. And then if a player scores in the opponent's goal directly from their hand arm, even if accidental, nope, didn't do that because it wasn't him that scored. Immediately after the ball has touched the hand arm, even if accidental, nope, because it doesn't then go immediately to a player to put in the goal. It goes to Bruno, who plays it then to Gordon, who there are several seconds in between the ball hitting his hand, and it does hit his hand, but it's not handball. We go back to the old school laws of is it deliberate or not? That is not a deliberate handball. Even in the modern age of things, that's not a handball. So it's just, yeah, salty fans. I understand why they're annoyed at it, because you're going to get annoyed when things like that happen against your side. But for what's really baffled me with it all is just how many people don't understand the laws of the game and aren't willing to look them up, aren't willing to go. I mean, it doesn't take 2 seconds to go Google FA laws, handball, boom, there it is, straight in front of you. That's exactly what you've got.
Yeah. It's sad that you don't get paid for this, Mark, like they do, and get paid very well, in all fairness. But to quote a phrase that say, rules are rules, play at the whistle, perfectly good goal. Yeah, exactly. And Philip is saying the handball would hardly be mentioned if it wasn't us. Exactly. Chippers is saying it's ball to hand, it's not handball. Tocoin is saying again, they've smashed it at them, it's their fault, not Big Joe's. You know, and again, it doesn't surprise me. I think Vincent is saying here, TalkSport are a joke too. Cundy and O'Hara, a pair of clowns, both of them. Yeah, I think I did vaguely see something about O'Hara trying to look relevant, talking about it, and Cundy was arguing or whatever. But you know, again, this is something I mentioned in the post match as well. That the Trevor saying all these inconsistencies of the referee. Let's get it right. The ref was shocking, right? We've seen some awful decisions. We'll get onto some of them in Out of Toon, some horrendous decisions from officials this weekend. But in this same match, which Mark will pull up in a second, the referee made some awful decisions that didn't go in our favour either. So, you know, Spurs can be as salty as they want, but they've got away with at least 2 big ones. But as Trevor says, this is the same ref, you know, who added on loads of time in this game, wouldn't even let us finish the attack against Liverpool 5 seconds over the allotted time. And we just put that chance away. We'd have won that game 4-3 had he done that. So this is the unfortunate nature of referees in the Premier League. They're inconsistent and they're awful, you know, and every single team gets something go against them and it balances itself out, I suppose, as the season goes on. But the 2 big decisions, Mark, for us, I mean, we won this game, which is mad, but the way Spurs fans are talking about it, we parked the bus, we were rubbish, we were negative, we were all this other stuff. You know, we took control in midfield probably for 70%, 80% of the first half, and that's why we went 2-1 up, because you switched off. You know, Tonali and Bruno and Joe Linton ran the show. And then you let Isak have too much space. He should have got a goal before he got a goal. You know, he could have had 2 goals in the first half, Isak, if he just took the other one away. I think he was trying to be too cute with it. You know, I think Gordon blasts one over the bar as well, doesn't he? We could have won that game 4-5-1 in the end, right? And we would have been good for the scoreline, you know. But the way they're talking about it is that they were unlucky to lose. But the two big talking points, Mark. I mean, the one Anthony Gordon, the first one, and Anthony Gordon. If you get that one, Eddie Howe's even said in his own press conference that he thinks that was a penalty. So if people who didn't know or people who are listening on audio, Kulusevski runs into the box. Mark's going to pull up the image in a second. Kulusevski runs into the box and he hits Gordon with so much force with his shoulder that he ends up busting Gordon's nose. And I don't know if his nose was broken, but certainly it was split and it was bleeding. Now, my understanding of a collision in the box when you're running in at pace and you clatter somebody, that's contact. And in my opinion, that's a penalty. And I don't understand why the referee said no, VAR said no, and Gordon's on the deck with a bloody nose. How they can't go back and look at the impact and go, right, he's running him at speed, he's clattered him. Gordon's basically sold him for a hot dog, tucked inside, and he's just run straight into him, wiped him out. And that's a penalty, Mark, surely all day long. How is it not a pen?
Yeah, I think anywhere else on the field, that's a free kick. And it's a foul. I don't think it's anything more than that. I don't think it was malicious. I think, yes, he runs into him, but he's not purposely shoved his shoulder into him as he's gone. I think he does stand himself up. I think he does straighten up as he's going in, and that's potentially just to kind of give himself a little bit of protection with Gordon turning. I don't think he's done it intentionally. That I'm giving him the benefit of the doubt there. He hasn't lifted his arm to go into him or anything like that. But he definitely blocks Gordon turning back away from sort of from the byline at that point in order to try and get a shot in. It's a foul. Like I say, anywhere else on the field, and that's given as a free kick. So that is a penalty. I don't think it's anything more than that, but it's definitely a foul.
Absolutely. Laughing at Coin's comment there. Some kind of Legion of Doom shit going on there, like you said. I do remember the old Legion of Doom with the spiky shoulder blades. But yeah, I mean, there was that one. And then the other one, Mark, was the foul on Dubravka. I mean, obviously, you're a keeper, right? You've fucking been smashed like this before in goal, right? Solanke is going in there, high feet for starters. It's a foul, right? But the fact that he raises his knee up and smashes Dubravka in the face, he's very lucky, Dubravka, that knee isn't maybe half an inch lower, because if it hit him right in the chin, it could have knocked him spark out. And that's dangerous play for me there. I mean, I know some people are calling for a red. I mean, it's an easy yellow for me, hands down. But I don't know how people are looking at that as dangerous play either, man. That's just mental.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me that it's borderline, this one, because if you look at the position of Dubravka in the first image on the left, he's punched the ball, and yes, Solanke's in the process of sort of jumping for that. Why is he going with his foot when the ball is that high? He's never getting to that ball. That's dangerous play.
I think he's going to do him. I think he's going to do him there. Honestly,
I mean, again, I don't think he's done it on purpose. He's not going to purposely knee him in the face, but I think he's bottled going for it with his head. Because if he goes for his head at that point, there is the potential that he makes contact and scores, but he also gets cleaned out by the goalkeeper. So he's bottled the collision. But again, any other place on the field in that scenario, and that's getting reviewed properly by VAR for a red card, because his leg is so high. And look at the position on the one on the left where Dubravka's punching the ball, how high he is at that point. Then look at the second one and look how far both of them are off the ground. If that's not dangerous play, I don't know what is. It's an awful challenge, and Dubravka's really lucky that you're right. He could have knocked him clean out. It's an awful decision to not give. Yes, I got a free kick for it, but it's a card minimum, and I'm sort of borderline with it, but I'm leaning to the red card for that, because that leg's so high.
Oh, it is definitely. It was an interesting thing, because you could see this kind of visceral dislike for Newcastle's success pouring out of people. Not just the Spurs fan base, but people in the media. People who feel a bit threatened that the clubs that they're associated to, the Gary Nevilles, the Carragers, the Ian Wrights, all these pundits in the media who've got associations with, Arsenal, Liverpool, Manchester United, respectfully, all feeling, you could just feel a little bit nervous that Newcastle are suddenly kicking back into the Newcastle that finished in the top 4 a couple of seasons ago. They were thinking, oh, that's a one-off. Everyone else had a bad season. All of a sudden, oh, fuck, look, they're coming again. And they're playing good football. They've got arguably the best centre-forward in the league at the minute, the most hottest centre-forward in the league at the moment. That's why they keep talking shit about signing him. Or Liverpool should sign him to replace Mo Salah. Arsenal should sign him. Give him 150 million. I mean, they even trotted out poor Keith Downey, who we've had on this channel before, and I love Keith, to say on one of his streams that Paul Merson didn't mean it like that. I love you, Keith, but he did mean like that because he's thick as fuck for one, and he's a Arsenal kissing bellend for two. He takes any opportunity to try and push the narrative for Arsenal into the media, same as Neville does with Manchester United, same with Carragher does with Liverpool. Alexander Isak, they all had their chance to sign Alexander Isak. And the reason I'm talking about him is because he got another goal at the weekend and he equaled a record of 7 consecutive games with a goal. Alan Shearer and Joe Willock, funnily enough, have both got the record for. I can see Alexander Isak breaking that in the next game because he doesn't seem to be able to stop scoring, touch wood, at the minute. But, they all had that chance to sign him and not one of them did it. Not one of them took the chance. He had an injury-plagued season at Real Sociedad and they all ran off and scurried away and didn't go anywhere near him. Newcastle United took the risk, spent 63 million quid on the lad, and he's double that at least right now. He's got a contract till 2028. It doesn't matter what Henry Winter says. It doesn't matter what anybody else says. Exactly, Chippers. Man United rather spent 80 million on Anthony. It doesn't matter what any of them say. Alexander Isak is costing you in this current market 150 million standing on his head. If Jack Grealish is 100 million and Declan Rice is 100 million, Alexander Isak is 150, and you ain't getting him for any less than that. And do you know what, Mark? Nobody can afford that. Not in this country right now. None of those big clubs can afford that without selling a massive player and getting the money back in. It ain't going to happen, mate.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. And there was the narrative the other day about PSG. We're going to bid sort of 70, 80 million. Just sat and laughed.
It would knock it back. It would knock it back.
They wouldn't even give them the time of day, would they? It was a ridiculous sort of thing to and it's such a lazy line anyway, isn't it? And it's so easy for those journalists, particularly the ones that are covering, we'll call them the southern clubs, for the likes of Arsenal and that, to go, well, striker in form, they need a striker. Oh well, yes, we'll link these two just because it's easy for them. It's easy column inches, it's easy clicks, it's easy interactions. Yeah, definitely not anymore. Not worth half of that.
What's Ian saying? Lindsay Hipgrave read the rules out live on TNT and she still disagreed. I find that hard to believe, even given the fact she's a Geordie and a Newcastle fan.
I get it. I get it if you don't like the rule, and there's part of us that doesn't like some of the rules that are there. Some of the handball rules I think stink, and some of this obviously stuff to do with offside and things I think stink. So there's a difference between. Disagree.
Karen Kearney disagreed.
Karen Kearney, yeah. I think
she's a fucking idiot.
There's a difference between knowing them and accepting them, and not liking them and going, well, I know what the rule is, but I don't think it's right. It's like that clip of, was it Pat Nevin in one of the World Cups where the ball went over the line, and he started arguing and say, actually, I disagree with the technology. That's not over the line. And there's a clear image of it over the line. You're like, oh, for goodness sake.
You disagree all you want, mate. It's still a goal. But going back to Alexander Isak, Mark, not a great game for him, I suppose. Had moments and stuff. But again, he's in red hot form. I think he's got 13 goals now for the season. He was only one behind Haaland until he got a couple at the weekend against West Ham, who've just sacked their manager recently as well. So they're in the market for a new manager. I think it's probably going to be Graham Potter by the looks of it. But Isak, there's no reason why he can't push for that golden boot. If he stays fit, which is the big thing, the big key factor, he has to stay fit. Because when he's fit, he scores goals, man. And he's just, at the minute, he's scoring all types of goals, which I love. He's scoring screamers from the edge of the box. He's scoring headers, little poacher goals. He's, even that one when it rolls off his foot and then he kind of stares at it and goes, go in, which made me laugh. Just that kind of cockiness about him, But I'm enjoying watching him play so much. And he's playing with a smile on his face. He's not getting caught up in all this noise about him and his contract. He just wants to play his football. He's enjoying playing for Newcastle. He's staring down the barrel now if Arsenal goes well over the 2 legs, he's in a cup final and he could potentially finish the season in a top 4 position or Champions League position with Newcastle United. Why would he want to leave? Why would he want to leave? If he's in the Champions League and he's won a cup, why would he want to leave?
Yeah, I mean, I can't say anything to that because you're absolutely bang on. There's no reason for in that scenario. There's just no reason to want to leave. I understand if you finish outside of the European places and don't win a trophy, then
we're in trouble. If we don't finish in Europe, we're in trouble then.
And that's exactly what we talked about a few weeks ago when we were saying, well, look, if that sort of poor run continued, that Newcastle were in trouble of losing players come the end of the season because players want to go and challenge themselves in Europe's biggest competitions, and that was always a worry. So the turnaround in form could have a massive sway then on the fact that Newcastle can then keep those best players, can keep the likes of Tonali, especially because he was massively linked with a return to Italy with Isak, certainly, because he would want to go and challenge himself at that level. So, yeah, it's such a huge thing, and I think if Newcastle do finish top 4, top 5, and were to get to a cup final and win a trophy at last, then that's a huge reason for those players to go, do you know what? This is now the start of something, or that next phase of challenging and being there, and why wouldn't they want to be a part of that?
Absolutely. For me, I totally agree, Mark. I just think that all of this stuff in the media, again, they were like this with City. People got to remember they were like this with City when City were coming, and City had way less restrictions than we do in terms of adding to their squad. When City first got the money, they didn't want to take City seriously. It was always City was still City, the poor relations of Manchester, Gillingham away, feed the goat and all that. They used to take the piss out of them, all the mainstream media. Then City just kept winning and getting higher and higher and higher. And all of a sudden, the better quality players came in, Pep came in, and then they had to take them seriously. And then they've been hanging out the back of City's arse for the last 10 years, the mainstream media. And we'll probably be the same, no doubt, once Newcastle gets to that level. But the way things are going at the moment, and I said this on post-match as well, and I stand by it, that, a lot of us questioned if Eddie Howard ran his race with Newcastle. He's proved a lot of people wrong. He has. You've got to give the manager credit. He's had an unbelievable December. He seems to have gone back to the drawing board. And people forget as well, the likes of Hall's a young player, Tino's a young player. We say, they'll make mistakes, but they'll learn from them. Eddie's a young manager still, and Eddie's made mistakes. And as long as he learns from mistakes and he betters himself, then that's for the betterment in Newcastle United. And that's what he's done. He's gone back to basics. He's dropped players who maybe had a special place in his heart, and he didn't want to drop, but he's realised for the betterment of the team, he's had to drop them. And because of that, the team is looking much better. So I give Eddie his credit for that. And the longer he keeps doing that, the better. But when you're talking about, we'll talk about transfers in a minute, but when you're talking about young emerging English talent, the likes of Tyler Dibblin, who we did the Rumour Has It with earlier on today, if you're a young English player, what better manager to go play for than this guy who takes young English players and turns them into England internationals? Because that's what he's doing. That's the pedigree that he's got. And if you're Tonali and Isak and Bruno even, and you're, in your kind of mid-20s, 26, 27-year-old, you're looking going, I'm the leader with all these young guys coming through. We could dominate for 5-10 years if these kids kick onto the game that they can do with this great coach. These guys don't want to leave that project. Why would they want to do that? For clubs that go, through managers like fucking just paper cups at a party, you know what I mean? Like Chelsea and people like that. Why would they want to go there? Yes, money and all the other shit and everything else. But, Newcastle, for me, if they finish in the top 5 this season, Mark, this project is right back on track. Right back on track. And I think our key players need the Champions League to keep them interested in the project. So it's very important that Newcastle do that. We'll get on to, questions about Dubravka and everything else in a minute because I've got some concerns about that. But yeah, for me, this ugly win was a great win to get, because it was much needed. And then there was another big talking point about this, and I'm going to let you steal the mic here because you've done some great work on this. We were all shocked to see, the Rolls Royce that was pulling back into the car park, Sven Botman back in the starting lineup at the weekend. And to me, mate, he never looked like he missed a beat, by the first 10 minutes. But you got some great slides you worked on there about Botman. So take it away, mate, and tell us about this Rolls Royce. I can hear about him all day.
I think you hit the nail on the head. I think the first 18, 19 minutes, I think, to give him his due, he was a little bit ring rusty, to say the least. And I look, it was always gonna be a case of he's a little bit rusty to start with. But I have seen some sort of comments that the goal was kind of down to him being rusty. And to be perfectly fair, I think this is just brilliant forward play from Solanke. We've criticised him for what he did later in the game, but at this point in the play, as this ball's about to be sort of knocked back for Porro to come in and whip the ball in, let's say it was a fucking brilliant cross. But Botman's touched tight at this point. It literally just before I took the screenshot, he's got his arm on him. So he's touched tight. He knows he's there. He knows where he is. Solanke's very clever at it because he just drifts slightly away from him, and he just takes those sort of step back away from Botman just to get out of his eye line. And as that ball's whipped in, he's then able to start his sprint into the area, into sort of just beyond the penalty spot, outside of Botman's eye line. And it's great centre forward play, and you can see there he's fully into his sprint pretty much at this point before Botman's able to shift his weight and to move. And it's just really, really good play from the forward at this point. And I don't think it eats too much of him just being a little bit rusty. There were moments over the next sort of 10 minutes where yes, I mean, the ball drops here, it was a long ball pumped forward. There's no one within sort of 10 yards of him. 99.99% of the time, he's taking a touch at this point and then playing the ball forward. He puts the ball out of play. Really unlike Botman at this point, but I think this was him finding his feet. Again, a few minutes later, he loses the ball, I think, to Timo Werner. Really unlike Botman at this point. He gets the ball caught just slightly under him, and he just can't shift the ball away. And there were moments like that, but then we started to see the Botman that we've missed watching, and it's these little balls through the lines where he's able to. He did one I missed actually was that he did a great little turn in the first half that took him past. I think it was Jed Spence who cleaned him out, and it's a wonderful little turn, and it's pure Botman at that point. That ability to just move the ball and move with it. It really showed that level of confidence was starting to come back, and then it was those really it's simple balls, but it's quick. It's those balls between players to sort of begin attacks, and then obviously having Newcastle missing Fabian Schär's ability to ping those 40-50 yard switch balls. Botman's perfectly capable of doing exactly the same thing. And it was that for the next sort of from 18th, 19th minute onwards, right until he sort of went off with the knock, and that was the 90th minute. He was excellent. I thought he defended really, really well. Those first few minutes where maybe he's a little bit shaky, disappeared, and he marshalled well, and this was part of it. You started to see the Botman who commanded the defense here. His head was constantly swiveled. It was constantly looking to see where everybody was, where his man was, where his defenders were, so he could keep them in check. And there were a couple of moments like this where you just started to see that full confidence and that leadership starting to come back at the back. And I think that's been a huge thing, particularly part of Newcastle's defence, although they've been really, really good over recent weeks. There is a huge difference in terms of style of leadership at the back between Botman and Schär and Burn, and I think it showed definitely at the weekend.
100%. I mean, again, shout out to Dan Burn, who was absolutely immense alongside him as well. All of this worry about two left-sided centre halves kind of play together and all of that. Dan Burn was brilliant, and Dan Burn's been brilliant all season.
Yeah.
And for me, I really hope, again, talking about Eddie Howe learning his lessons as a young manager, for fuck's sake, Eddie, do not put this guy back at left back, because he's night and day in terms of the way he plays for the team. When you put him at a left back, he's exposed against pace. He gets tired up a notch. When you put him at centre back, he's like a fucking gladiator. He'll throw himself in front of anything. I likened him. I'm not saying he's anywhere near as good of a player, but I likened him to John Terry in the post match, whereas he'll throw himself in front of anything, and he will. Dan Burn, he doesn't give a fuck. He'll take a yellow card for the team, which he did at the weekend. But alongside Botman, for me, I've seen a couple of comments saying that they wouldn't start Botman on Tuesday because of you're worried about his fitness. And that, for me, I would start him. There's no Fabian Schär. And I don't think you trust Lloyd Kelly. Fuck me, I don't trust Lloyd Kelly in a game like that personally, mate. I'd rather have Lorraine Kelly at the back than Lloyd Kelly. But I would play Botman, and he only came off with cramp, which was rightly so because the game was fast-paced, Mark, wasn't it? And I think it just caught up to him.
Yeah, definitely. I think he's had a couple of days of sort of rest and recuperation now, and I think definitely if you going up against an Arsenal side that, let's face it, are pretty good going forward. Usually, then I definitely would want Botman there instead of Lloyd Kelly. So I just think he's gonna just be the much better defender against what Arsenal are bringing.
Absolutely. I'm just laughing at George's comment saying Lloyd Kelly plays like he's wearing Ned Kelly's helmet. I actually think he plays like he's wearing his jeans, George. You can't see him lift his fucking leg up more than 2 inches off the ground. Maybe he just needs to get used to our style of play, but he certainly does not look like a player you'd bring into a big game situation like that. I mean, the slides you got up there, Mark, is obviously just us digging in the midfield, and we've got some stats that we saw on Match of the Day as well about the running power of the midfield. Obviously, we've got a preview coming out for Arsenal. We know Bruno's missing, but this just highlights how hard working that midfield is, mate, isn't it, in terms of grinding out these results?
Definitely, and I mean, I called it winning ugly, and I think that was pretty much the case. And I said earlier on, it was just a different type of win. But I like the way that Newcastle kind of overloaded towards the wide areas when it really only allowed Spurs to go down that route. They didn't, where we've seen in previous weeks where they've really defended just within the box. I think they changed that sort of philosophy in the second half where they were willing to put 2 or 3 players out wide to really box in where Spurs could attack. And it's really key. I think the 3 midfielders in this point really pulled across to one side of the field to try and sort of box in and stop those little balls through and to stop the crosses then coming in, or good crosses coming in, I should say. You can see them all pulled across to the left-hand side there. Again, you can see, and I haven't highlighted Bruno in this one, but Bruno is obviously there. And again, they've pulled all 3 across into that side of the field to kind of block off those areas. And the same went the other way. And the ball switched to the other side, whether it was Werner, whether it was Heung-min Son. Those 3 midfielders then pulled across to that midfield, that side of the field to block off those areas. And there were moments, the one that Son gets through. There's Maddison's shot. There's the turn from Kulusevski that I thought Botman defended really, really well. But I just like the way that Newcastle set up. And again, you sort of look. There were at times late in the game, Newcastle were comfortable to drop into a back 5. Joe Linton would go in and fill in at fullback. Jacob Murphy had filled in sort of in that right fullback at times as well. Tino dropping into that sort of right centre-back role in that. It's just to block off those areas and force Tottenham to play wide and keep the ball away from those little through balls that they do like to play. Maddison's very, very good at it. And Son's good at getting in behind playing like that. So's Kulusevski, so's Solanke. So it was really, really top-notch defending and just a different way of attacking the game. I just thought they were, like I said earlier, I just thought it was really good to see them win in a different style and it's really with a different a direction of how to defend against a side that controlled an awful lot of the second half and looked really, really dangerous.
Looks quite fair and even to me, to be fair, mind you. So even absolutely. So I'm just laughing at Chippers is saying that I not fancy go for my Butch Dingo look today. No, Chippers, it's not as cold today, mate. It's not as cold today. The heating's been on, mate. The heating's been on. Not too long, mind you. I'm not that flush, mate. I'm not that flush. But yeah, moving on to the next game. Obviously, Mark is we've got a semi on. Well, hey, here come the comments. So we've got a semi on. against Arsenal. Obviously we'll have a preview going out. We are missing 2 huge players. It's stupid suspensions and Fabian Schär, and obviously Bruno's a big blow as well. I mean those kind of the running stats that we had a match of the day, which is here.
Yes.
So this was the 3 in midfield, and you could just see the level of distance they're covering off the ball. Sandro, Bruno, and Joe Linton there. I mean, Bruno's. Remember people like Danny Murphy said Bruno doesn't run. That was quite funny, wasn't it? So 5 kilometers he's ran in a game there. Obviously, Sandro's beaten by 0.2 kilometers, and then Joe's 4.5. Now, obviously, two of the kind of 3 amigos will be playing. Spoiler alert, we've gone for Longstaff in our team selection, which is probably what Eddie's going to do. I'd love to see him give Louis Miley a go in that game, but I just don't think that he will. But in the Arsenal game, just touching a little bit on it, before the preview comes out, Mark, it's going to be a tough game. I mean, especially without Bruno being there. I just think that Odegaard dangerously could get on the ball and maybe make something happen. I think Tonali and Joe Linton are going to have to really be almost even better than they've been before, because although Sean can play well in ugly games, Sean's got nowhere near the kind of running power and quality on and off the ball that they do. So it's going to be a different game altogether, isn't it?
He certainly covers the ground, and I think in that sort of more advanced position that he's better at playing when we go back to the previous trio midfield of Joe Linton, Bruno, and Sean. He was always the one that was further forward on the right. That Bruno's been playing an awful lot, so I think that's a more natural fit. I think if it's at St James's, does Miley play? Because I just think with the impetus would be for Newcastle to attack
the atmosphere and all that, and the noise and everything else. I think Miley could play away. I think he could play away, but I don't think he'll trust him in the game. I think he'll break glass and go for Sean, which is disappointing in many ways, because I quite like to see us use the ball better in that game.
Yeah, well, they're certainly going to have to use it when they have it. I think Arsenal will dominate possession. I think, but I think the new midfield with Tonali slightly deeper will help to nullify some of the stuff that Odegaard does, because he likes to get in those positions in between the lines and play those sort of through balls and get the ball to the wide players. It's a huge miss for Arsenal, them not having Saka and potentially not having Nwaneri as well, who are both very good from the right hand side coming in on the left. So they're not going to have that. So Odegaard will have to adapt his game, because he likes to play that ball out towards Saka.
I agree with that from Dean, by the way. I think Miley's perfect replacement for Bruno, because he has got that vision, Dean. We saw that even when he was 17 years old, a skinny little rake coming to the team. He's filled out. He looks like a man now, doesn't he? And I want to see him let off the leash, and what better chance than now. But I mean, it is a massive risk, isn't it, in a semi-final to play an 18-year-old lad, no matter how good he is. It's a big gamble, isn't it?
But this is the same kid that played in the Champions League and acquitted himself brilliantly.
Tackled Mbappe with ease. Yeah,
so,
exactly.
The kid has no fear. No. Let's face it. So, I don't think that putting him into that game would phase him at all. I think he would shine. I do think, with it being away first, I do think that there's an element of safety first with it, and I think possibly you're right. I think Sean will probably get the nod for it.
I think so.
But I'm with you. I'd love to see Miley back in the starting lineup and showing his ability, because we know he's got bags of it.
Absolutely. Well, we've got the preview coming out, guys, to probably some point tomorrow. So check that out. And then obviously we'll be on for the post-match straight after the game. Hopefully it'll be a good result. But I'm not scared of Arsenal in many ways, Mark. I know that sounds a bit crazy. I think we have shown that we can play ugly against them. We've got 0-0s at the Emirates before. We know the game plan that can rattle all Captain Scarlet and the rest of them. Do you know what I mean? So it's not totally beyond us to go there and just take a big shit in the Emirates and just let them deal with the smell. Do you know what I mean? Then get them back to St James's Park and fucking batter them. Really, it's not beyond the realms of possibility.
Now, how funny would it be to really rattle 2 North London managers within the space of sort of 3 days?
I want Joe Linton. I want Joe Linton to do something really shocking, like, and get away with it, and then they'll go fucking mad.
Like,
But
can you
and
imagine?
Janota just shaking, drinking whiskey in like a North London bar somewhere, just shouting and swearing about Joe Linton.
We might even end up with one of those dancing Arteta videos again to music like we did last time when he's dancing and throwing his hands around. And honestly,
that's a great comment from David. Yeah, I mean, you can see how much the lads believe in him, David. You're absolutely right. If you're good enough, you're old enough, Mark. We've said that so many times. And that kid is good enough, man. We know he's good enough. We've seen it already. And I would love, if Eddie does it, he will massively go up in my estimations for having balls to say, do you know what? Fuck it. I believe in this kid. And I honestly think if he does start Miley, I think Miley will repay him. I really, really do. He'll repay him with a hell of a performance, I think.
What was which game was it that he came on a couple of weeks ago when he came on for Bruno? And was it against Forest?
Fulham. And he just, it was Fulham. And he never lost the ball. He was just dinging around left, right, and centre, wasn't he? He had 100% passing ratio. And he was just passing it around for fun, wasn't he?
He just looks so comfortable. And that's something that, but for all that Sean is an absolute grafter, and will always give his all. He just doesn't have that comfortable feel on the ball. He's not a passer. Like Willock and like Joe Linton, I guess, in that regard, they're not passers of the ball, and they're never gonna have 80, 90 passes in a game and hit the 90% when they've got that many passes. They're not gonna have 2 or 3 or 4 key passes a game and play those little through balls. We've seen the odd one, but Miley will do it consistently. Bruno does it consistently. Those players are invaluable, and getting into those forward areas, I think, I'm with you. I want to see Miley in the side, getting into those areas that we know he can do. How much Isak will thrive off that as well, again, because we've seen it.
He'll make the runs because he knows that kid's got that ball. He knows, people go, oh, he's not quick enough. You don't need to be quick enough when you can make that pass. You just need to shift it and pass. We've seen people like David Beckham wasn't the quickest. He was able to shift it and pass. People like that are always going to have the speed of mind, and that's much better than legs. It's a great comment there by Dean again, saying that in the presser, Eddie said he wants to keep the balance, and that tells him that he is going to go with Miley. So that'd be really, really interesting. Ian saying smash Odegaard in the stands. That would definitely be the first tackle I would put in, mate. Absolutely. Phil saying bonuses. Saka said absolutely normally plays well. Again says, I really hope you're right, Ian, that Isak scores and wipes the arse in the corner flag, because that would be absolutely class. So it is going to be a good game. I mean, again, we go into the game. We're not scared though, mate. We're not scared of Arsenal. No. We believe we can get a result there, and I think if the players go in with that kind of confidence, which I think they will, if we can leave the Emirates with a draw and get them back to St James's, we've got every single chance of getting through to that next phase of the competition, mate. I really believe that.
Yeah, I mean, look, I guess how many times over recent seasons have Newcastle had really shit draws and gone, well, an away draw against one of those sides, and kind of looked at it and gone, that's it. And there've been some really, really good performances in some of those games as well. But there's always been that air of fear going in somewhere like the Emirates, particularly at this level of this stage of a competition, and I just don't think it's there. I mean, look, 6 wins on the bounce, 1 goal conceded in God knows how long. I've lost track of how many minutes it is since the last one. There's that air of confidence and arrogance and belief just throughout the squad now that they can just go and take on anybody anywhere and get a result from it. So it is great to see them playing with such swagger.
Absolutely. Chippers is bang on there. We need to keep the tie on for the second leg. As long as we stay in the tie, Chippers, you're absolutely right, mate. And if we do, our fancy is to beat anybody at St James's Park. But the transfer window's open, yay, or maybe not. No, I don't know. I don't know how to feel about the transfer window being open. But transfer talk is back on the What's Going On agenda. And it really is about players going out, Mark, at the minute. I mean, the big one is Martin Dubravka. All these stories doing the rounds about Martin Dubravka. Eddie's been pressed and he's not really said anything about it. The stories go, if you believe it, is that Martin Dubravka is going to be allowed to leave to go to the Saudi Arabian League. The deal seems to be great for Martin. He's 36 years old. He's probably going to get paid an absolute fortune. He'll earn more money probably in 2 years than he would have earned 10 years in Europe. He's got 6 months left on his contract. So Martin Dubravka wants to move, and apparently the club are letting Martin make the decision. It sounds like he's going to go. So it sounds like, if everything you believe, is Tuesday is going to be his last game. I've already seen a few comments from the guys there, which I agree with. I think it's crazy to let him go at the minute because Pope's out and he's on number one at the moment. And he's playing well. He's not making loads of saves, but the saves he has to make, he's doing it very well. He looks assured. He's good with his feet at the minute. He's actually reminding everybody of what the decent keeper he was when we signed him. And it's crazy. This is probably the best Martin Dubravka's played in ages, and we're going to let him go. But, what do you think about this, Mark? Number one, obviously, do you think it's a big mistake to let him go? And number two, do you think we do some kind of a deal to bring in, James Trafford's been linked numerous times. I personally don't think Trafford's all that. I might be wrong. It might be a Lewis Hall type scenario as a goalkeeper. He might turn out to be a fucking world beater, But do you think this is a massive gamble by Newcastle at this stage of the season with Champions League football looking like it's potentially within our grasp, and a cup final potentially? We're going to end up in another Loris Karius situation here if we let Dubravka go.
That whole scenario is just ludicrous, and it happens because of Nick Pope's rash moment against Liverpool, doesn't it? Where he ridiculously handballs it. But look, it looks like Pope's going to be back soon. I think the news was that he's back training on grass.
Wolves game, the Wolves game, the target, I think, isn't it?
Bournemouth or Wolves, I can't remember which one, but he's not far off. It's difficult because you bang on. Dubravka's done really, really well, and you can, for me, you only let Demos there's a reason he's not playing. When all that money's been spent on him, and it's been spent for a reason. I understand the whole PSR shite that's for, but there's a reason why he's not played when Pope's been injured, and it's because he's not trusted, and he's a Newcastle player by name only. Really, he's not. I don't think he's part of anybody's plans.
No.
So that if Nick Pope is still a good couple of weeks away and Dubravka's allowed to leave, there has to be somebody else coming in, because you're not turning to John Ruddy to fill in for 3 weeks. You're not turning to Mark
I'd rather put you in goal than John Ruddy, mate. I think your reflexes are better.
I mean, I've got all the knee problems in the world, but I think I trust myself more than...
You still get down quicker.
I just fall over now and I'm down quicker. It's getting back up that's the problem. I think I let Dubravka go if you've got somebody coming in to take over as number one / number two. And look, I know you're not sold on Trafford. I like him. I do think he's a good goalkeeper. He's young. I think he's going to be great. I have said that before about a young goalkeeper, and was proved to be massively wrong. Not massively wrong, but he wasn't quite the finished article that I thought he was going to be. But I do think Trafford's got it. He's decent with his feet. He does command well. Yes, he has those young moments, and I will always come back to the thing we've said about Lewis Hall and Tino Livramento in that regard, that the young players are going to make mistakes.
But you can get away with it more as a defender than you can a keeper. When you make a mistake as a keeper, it could bury you under 10 feet of sand, man.
If you're good enough, though, you have to play. Donnarumma was the prime example of that in Italy, where he came in when he was, 15, 16, and he was like 18 feet tall at 16 years old. So maybe it's a different story. But I do think that the drop down a level has helped Trafford this season. I think he's done well. Yes, there have been the odd moment with him. He wasn't helped at all last season by the fact that Burnley were absolutely dog shite and company.
The manager got the Bayern Munich job. Work that out.
He wasn't helped. and company didn't help him out by changing their style in it. But I do fundamentally for him, I think long term that probably does him some good, because he's still playing in the same way. He's still able to play the ball out with the feet. He looks far more comfortable with the ball at his feet than Nick Pope ever has. And I do think that somewhere around that 20-25 million mark, I think you've got a hell of a player coming in. And I know you don't agree with that, but I genuinely see the promise that he has, and he could come in and really take that spot and just, well, Nick Pope would just drop down the pecking order and potentially then move on. But I only make that Dubravka deal if I've got somebody coming in, because I'm not playing one of the other ones.
I think it's a crazy deal to make if you're not got another keeper coming in. I mean, for me, I understand people having those feelings of potential with Trafford, but for me, some of the guys have already said it as well in the comments. Pope looks like he's declining as a keeper. I think the injuries are taking a toll on him. I think he's not as strong in terms of coming out and claiming. He's not as good, diving to get at the corners like he used to be able to. Something has gone wrong with Pope. And for me, you need a keeper that's more ready now. And to me, that's someone like Kelleher at Liverpool, who's not going to get the game time. Mamadashvili coming in, Alisson's still there. Someone like Kelleher to me is the player that I would be going for. And if you're going to drop 25, 30 million quid in a keeper, I'd be going for Kelleher. I really would. I think he's out of contract. I think in 2026, it is. Yeah, so I think you could get Kelleher for the same level of money. I think he's more experienced. He's more ready now. And that's why I would go for Kelleher. I really would. As Chip has just almost read my mind, said the same thing as well. Kelleher, for me, is the right call. But again, I suppose, not to sound like one of the Kool-Aid swiggers, you've got to trust the process. If they want, you're going to clip that. You're going to clip that. If they want to sign Trafford and they think Trafford is going to be this brilliant goalkeeper, then you have to trust them on that judgment call. And he might prove you wrong. He was part of that England team that won the tournament. He was massively involved in it with his penalty saves and all that stuff. And that's what he kind of was elevated to the forefront for, in terms of, look at this great young goalkeeper. And he went backwards. Maybe it's because of the team he was in. You put him in a better team with better training, better players around, better back four in front of him. Maybe he looks better. But it's a big gamble to take, Mark, because for me,
it is.
I think Pope is going backwards, and I think you need a number one for next season. You don't need a potential great goalkeeper.
No, but let's not forget where his upbringing was. It was at City, and he played under that style under Pep.
That's true. And the ball at his feet, playing from the back, all that stuff. Yeah.
And look at the few that have come through that over the last couple of years that have then moved on elsewhere and done particularly well. The likes of, oh my God, my brain's just gone into mush.
Cole Palmer,
Morgan Rogers. I mean, you've now got McAtee looking like a really good prospect as well. That I think we've got a rumour has it.
Even Liam Delap, you could argue say Liam Delap was in the reserves there. He's doing really well. So he's
had a good upbringing in that regard. So I genuinely think there's a very, very good goalkeeper there. And
as Chris says, he'd be in a better team as well. So that's
exactly.
You could judge him there, but I just think it's a massive gamble. I agree with Ginger that Kelleher is the one seasoned and European proven, and I think he would 25. Want exactly, and I think he would want to be a number one somewhere. Kelleher, and he knows Newcastle's a big club. He knows the project's there, and he knows that would be a good move for him, and obviously let's not forget he's Irish number one. We had the Irish number one goalkeeper for how many years in the shape of Shay Given? Yeah, I'm sure Shay Given's got a lot to say to the lad, you know what I mean, in terms of maybe a hero growing up and all that kind of stuff, So for me, Kelleher's the one. Kelleher's the one to come in. But it'll be interesting to see what happens. But when you listen to people like Greg Hope and Keith Downing, that the way they're sounding it, no one's coming in, which is even worse, in my opinion, if we don't get anybody in this window. And we let Dubravka go. Obviously, Almiron looks like he's going to be going. Back to the MLS is what his desire is, but the wages have to be right for Almiron. Doesn't want to go for less money. Now you can call him a mercenary. You can just say that's fair game. He's got used to earning a certain level of money. He doesn't want to take less money. But he isn't playing. And as Chipper says, Trippier. I see it with me, Chippers. I think Trippier will stay. I think we'll get the season out of Trippier because I think his experience will be required, and certainly in the Arsenal game, if we get to the final, those kind of things. I think Trippier might stay and give us the season and go in the summer, when we can maybe get some more cover in to play, on that right side with Tino. But yeah, for me, I just think, it's a big gamble going into this window and selling and not buying. And people are saying, "Oh, we're going to have a big summer," but we're chasing Champions League football. We're looking for a cup. We're 1 or 2 or 3 injuries away from both of those drifting away. And certainly with a goalkeeper, that's a massive gamble for me, Mark.
It is. I think with Trippier, definitely there's an element there of there is no one else beyond that really. But right back, obviously you'd have Kraft there to as cover, but he's injured. There isn't anybody else that will come in and cover that position. I guess you could move Fabian Schär out there, but you wouldn't want to. I don't think he'd be suited. I
can play 3 at the back, I suppose. Botman, Byrne, but
I'm not entirely sure.
Schär, if you want
to do that. I guess you could move Jacob Murphy back into that role. He's done it at times, but again, you don't want to do that. For the life of me, I'm scratching my head to try and remember the name of the kid that came from West Ham. Harrison Ashby.
Yeah. Well, he kind of didn't cut the mustard at lower league level, and I think is he not being released, or he's getting released? I think I'm sure he's getting released. His contract's not being renewed. I think.
Is he? Where is he now? Is he currently at QPR?
Sorry, on loan. 5 at the back. Trev says, "Well, you know, Trev. Well, you know."
There isn't anything else in that. So Trippier, I'd be really reluctant if it's me to let him go, just purely for leadership more than anything else, but for cover, I think, for Livramento.
What about Longstaff? This noise about Longstaff going. We just talked at length, wax lyrically about Louis Miley, who's ready, in my opinion, who's ready. Do we let Sean move on?
If the bid's good enough, yes. Because the cover's there. Willock's fit, Miley's back. You've got Joe Linton, you've got Bruno, you've got Tonali. I think if the bid's good enough,
behave, Chippers, behave.
And
Sorry, Mark.
Look, if you said to me 6, 7, 8 weeks ago that out of the transfer window you might get, and I've seen the reports of 16 million for Miggy, which I think might just snap their hands off straight away.
That's a better deal than Jonathan would get at Real Madrid if they get 60 million for a fucking arm, mate. My word.
6 to 8 million for Dubravka as well, which I think is an incredible deal.
I don't think it's 8 million. I reckon it's probably closer to about 5 for Dubravka. I'd be shocked if it's 8.
I think I said during the summer, I think if you got anywhere near 2, I think you'd be absolutely laughing. But the way that he's played, I think he's proved that he's worth a few more quid than that. He's still got a few years left in the tank. But if you can get 20 plus for those 2, and then if you were to get somewhere in the region of 20 for Sean as well, I mean, you're giving him an extra year's on his contract with the extension, 15 to 20 million, 20 plus maybe, to somebody like a Leicester or
and you can get 2 or 3 players and split the costs over time, and you can get some real good players. I mean, Marcus thinks Sean is a beautiful human being. He's maybe going to Celtic by the sound of it, according to Marcus, to play for Brendan Rodgers, I think, mate. But, I can't see that. But yeah, it's an interesting one. I think most people are in agreement with Phil. It's a wrong time to sell Dubravka, weirdly enough. After we've said for so long he's not going to get a sniff in the first team. But I mean, if the club think they know what they're doing, then fine. But I think if you sell those 2 players or 3 players, if you include Sean, and you bring nobody in, I think that's a real gamble, mate. A real gamble. That I don't agree with that.
I mean, that scares you, doesn't it? To lose 3 squad players and not replace any of them, when we've seen what Newcastle's injury history has been over the last 8 years, there's no way if I'm in control, I'm letting those 3 go with nothing in return. I get the PSR thing. I get the fact that there are going to be there's potentially tightness in that area again, but surely if you're bringing in that, you're able to replace 1 or 2. Surely there has to be
Yeah. Hayden's gone off the wage bill. Yeah, we've gone off the. See, it's as clear as the wage bill. So if you're looking at the whole P&L thing, then maybe. It could be a better situation. But I mean, I'd like to think the club are at least going to bring in two this window. I'd be shocked if it's not a right centre back, potentially a right winger. We talked about Dibbling. I think the deal for Dibbling is probably right now. Southampton are dead and buried, man. Six points. They are further adrift than fucking Rose on the old wood door in Titanic, mate. They are miles away, mate. Miles away from it.
Speaking of Southampton and transfer news, I'll just quickly interject this one. The wonderful man that is Ben Burton Diaz appears to be heading back to the Championship already. So again, will not have won a Premier League game. So let's Ben Burton.
Fantastic. Couldn't happen to a better shithouse. But yeah, they know they're fucked. So it's all about a rebuild for them. They're never going to stay in the Premier League now. They're totally fucked. Yeah. So they'll probably sell Dibbling while they get a chance to get some money from, put it in the coffers to spend in the summer to try and get themselves back out of the Championship and back to the Premiership, under the dad from American Pie or whoever the manager will be in the summer, probably.
Yeah, I think definitely Dibbling's one that if that is a proper target,
I think they do that deal. I think Newcastle do that deal,
and I think Newcastle are happy to then let him continue his development in that side for the rest of the season. Because even though the fact that they've been utterly dreadful, he's looked very, very good.
Yes,
absolutely he is. But yeah, I think definitely having a player like that, once their relegation is confirmed, doing that deal, he's a year closer. I think they've got him. I know you put. I think he's 2027. I think his deal runs out, so he's only got a couple of years left on that.
Yeah,
he's only on about $5,000 a week at the moment. Obviously, that's going to shoot up massively. But even that, I mean, 2 years left on that deal. The amount that they can command won't be as much, especially as a relegated side. So waiting a little bit, although you invite.
She did, Cushy. I beg your pardon. Yeah, more like Jack than mate. More like Jack. Don't know that. I got mixed up.
I was saying you invite competition from elsewhere, but look, you said it earlier. If you're going to go anywhere at the moment as a young English player to develop and break into the Premier League side, in a side that's that is challenging for those top sort of 6 spots, I don't think there's a better club at the moment to go to than Newcastle with who the manager is.
Absolutely, mate. But we'll see what happens. We'll definitely be keeping an eye on the transfer window to see what the hell we can or can't do as Newcastle United as well. So comment there from Steve saying this team believes in each other. All it will take is one key player out and the cracks could show. But if we hold the arse today, we're in the final. Absolutely, mate, 100%. I think we have to believe that we can do it. And I think we will. I think we will get a good result and get them back to St. James's. So moving on to the last section of the night, which is Out of Toon, where we talk about non-Newcastle United things. But just before we do talk about that, I have got a Newcastle United thing I just wanted to bring up, Mark, because we missed it off the main agenda. And I'd be interested to hear what the viewers' comments are about this. So if anyone didn't see it, the club have launched the new retro line, which is the old kind of granddad 1996-7 style Keegan shirt, obviously famously worn by, Shearer and Ferdinand, Ginola and all them players. And obviously a lot of people were losing their mind. A lot of people were saying, oh, it's amazing, it's brilliant. It's probably going to retail out probably about between 60 and 80 quid or something, Mark. And I saw a couple of people making some comments about it, and I kind of sit in the middle with it, but I can see a lot more of the cynical view on it than I can the positive view on it. So we're obviously talking about having to sell to buy and having no revenue and all this other stuff. And it seems to be every other week, maybe not every other week, but every other month there's another retro line being launched by Adidas in the club to get more money and more money and more money off the fans at a difficult time, where people are struggling to pay their bills and everything else as well. And I just don't know whether it's just a little bit too much of it all at the moment. There's a lot of retro shirts out there, a lot of retro shirt sites out there where you can probably get it a lot cheaper than you could do from the club, but people will be queuing up in their droves and buying them. And and all that kind of stuff. And I can understand why people want to buy it and see a few comments saying I'm buying it, because it's an amazing shirt and it's steeped in such great memories and that. But I just don't know if it's just one too many for me, Mark, in terms of, how many more of these things are going to bring out to get people to buy them. It just seems to be an endless supply of new shirts. And it does smell a little bit of, as Ian says there, Adidas taking the piss. It just smells a little bit more of, let's pump the fans for more cash and more cash and more cash and more cash. And, I don't know how I feel about it, mate. I really don't, I've still got mine, as you can see there, my old retro bad boy, which is a bit faded in the wash, but I never chucked it out.
Well, we were critical a couple of seasons ago, weren't we, with the fourth, and there was a fifth kit as well because of the kit clashes and stuff. And I think it is when we complain so much about the fact that the clubs have 3 or 4 kits a season and they change every season, which I think is ridiculous in itself. But to then go,
as you say,
I sort of get the feeling around it because it's that era of positivity and the fact that it was, it was the Adidas link to them again. And yes, Kibble, you're absolutely right. You don't have to buy them.
Yeah, you're right.
But I do think there's a little bit, there is that cynical headness that thinks that, well, because of that, I was going to say captive audience. It's not a captive audience because you've now got that audience where there's this link between the two again, and it harks back to those days that they can not only sell the new kit and the new training kit and all of that new stuff, then go, ooh, actually, while we're here, we can release this one and this one and this one from the old range again as well, and we can take even more money out of them. And I get it. I get the argument, and I get it, Gibbo. I get you don't have to part with your money to do it, but I do think there is and especially I think for some of the arguments where, like, if there's a lack of money being spent at the club, is this purely to drive up some of that
revenues up? Yeah, I mean, it does. It is revenue generation for me. I mean, I get it, and I understand people wanting to buy it, as I say, and I understand people saying you don't have to buy it, but our fan base more than anything, if somebody wrapped a turd in a Newcastle bag, our fan base would buy it. That's just what they do. They go nuts for any kind of Newcastle United, equipment or kit or whatever it is. Even when fucking Castore made it was falling to pieces, people are still buying it. So Adidas have got this, this kind of captive audience, as you rightly say, and the club are really pushing it. There's always an advert here and a teaser there, and I've lost track of the amount of retro style shirts and training kits and all the other stuff. It's good. I'm laughing at Ty there. Yeah, Adam P keeps them afloat. He probably gets them for free time. But yeah, I understand people wanting to buy them. But yeah, for me, I don't know. I just feel a little bit cynical about it. I think Trevor mentioned it there. If they don't spend any money on players and they've put membership fees in, they've put, ticket prices will end up going up. You've got posh seats in the Leazes End now. Buy a new retro style shirt every month. Buy a new training kit for your kids. But we're not going to buy any players. You go, is that right? It just feels a bit funny to me.
Yeah, I get it. I get both arguments of that, and I do think it's when you've already got so many different kits available for now. Is there really the absolute need to start doing it? But yeah, and
George is saying, take my money. No, again, it wasn't me moaning. It was just me saying I can totally see why people are a little bit cynical about the whole thing. To be brutally honest with you, Cynical Jim says he thinks it's too good to bring out the retro kits. I don't have the new kits, but I go and buy the Grandad retro. Yeah, I mean that is unbelievable. The Grandad retro, there's no doubt about it. It's probably the best shirt we've had in modern time, to be fair. Lynn said, not to mention the stack made millions in December. Exactly. The stack is something they've driven so much, But yeah, we'll see what happens with it. But I mean, it just make you laugh again if by the end of the season there'll be another shirt that, a throwback to whatever. And how many more shirts will it be before the season's out? That should be answers on a postcard thing. Maybe that could be a competition prize. How many more shirts will it be before the end of the season? But anyway, going back to Out of Toon. So there's been a lot of stuff kicking off outside of Newcastle at the minute, and we've got to start, Mark, with Sean Dyche. I mean, this was box office, right? When you're a struggling manager and you're a shit team and you'd circle around the drain in the Premier League, and you have been for so long. So Sean Dyche was getting interviewed, and he said it's not a bad run on paper if you add wins into it, which a lot of people were thinking, come again. It's not a bad run if you add wins to it. And we're all scratching our heads wondering what the fuck he meant by that. And this was probably, as dark as it was, the funniest reply to that I think I've possibly ever seen from Blue Boy, where he said, if you take the dead bodies away, Fred West actually laid a decent patio. It's grim. It's grim. But it probably highlights how awful those comments are by Sean Dyche. The Everton fans had a bit of enough of them, haven't they, really? I've got no love lost for Everton fans. But yeah, what was your take on those comments, mate?
Well, that's. I mean, if you look at that run, it's 1 win in 11. It's a draw against Fulham. That's fair enough, a decent result. Got beat off Southampton. I mean, that's all. 0-0 draw against West Ham. 0-0 against Brentford. Fair enough. Lost 4-0 to Manchester United. Where's and I get there were another 0-0 with Arsenal and Chelsea. Really good results. I get that. And a draw with City, but at that point in time, everybody was getting points out of Manchester City. So, no, I don't see it. I think it's not a good run. It's that old Gino De Campo thing. If my grandmother had wheels, she'd be a bike. That's the look. Your run is your run. If you're not winning games, you're not winning games. You can't suddenly go, "Oh, it's a good run." If we had wins, you don't have them. It's just bonkers.
It is. They're absolutely terrible. As Marcus says, these are the fools that ran Anthony Gordon out of town. Exactly what they would give for a player of that quality right now. But interesting enough, talking about Southampton, one of the craziest things I think I've ever seen in terms of football fandom and everything else. So if anyone hadn't seen this on social media already, so this was a post that came from was it Hugo Schechter? Is that? So he said he went to St Mary's for the first time in a while. His mum, who knows nothing about football, predicted that Southampton would get beat 5-0. And then her prize was to win a shirt that poor Adam Armstrong, former of Newcastle, had to give to the woman after they'd just been pumped 5-0. Adam Armstrong looked like a kid on Christmas Day that didn't get that BMX that he fucking asked for. The poor bastard looked miserable. And the last got booed when she got up to get the shirt in a joke and jovial way. So as I mentioned before, Southampton know that fuck. But that is going to be the craziest thing I think I've ever seen, Mark, in football fandom.
I mean, I kind of get the prediction of a 5-0 defeat. I'm not going to take that away. It was one of those moments where you just look at, oh my goodness. But to get booed as well, I mean, who was predicting anything other than a defeat? Do you know what I mean?
A 5-0 defeat, though. I mean, that's fucking dreadful, isn't it? And she got it right, which is the worst thing. Obviously, West Ham got pumped as well, which means the end for their manager, old Lopetegui. Now, we mentioned it earlier on, a comment some of the guys have mentioned. Is Graham Potter got your money on coming in, mate, you think, for the West Ham scenario?
That's the talk, isn't it? That Potter will be in. I'm almost surprised they haven't gone back to Moyes again for a 17th time to rescue them. And
he was at the game, wasn't he? Wasn't Moyes at the game? He was actually at the game. If Moyes comes back in, honestly, they might as well just give the guy a lifetime contract and just leave him there. If
he goes back, then he deserves anything that comes his way, because it's just. I mean, he needs to walk as far away from them as possible. I know he won their first European trophy in God knows how long, but he needs away, because he's been and gone too many times that he can't go back. He can't. They have to go elsewhere. I think Potter's probably. It's time for him to come off the bench, isn't it, and get back involved. And it's probably his level, to be fair.
It probably is, to be fair. And he's not a bad manager. I think the Chelsea job was a dreadful job. He should never have taken it. He's not a bad manager. So he might get West Ham comfortably mid-table, which is probably where they really belong. But going back to Tottenham Hotspur, now, we mentioned the game changed up a little bit when Maddison came on at the weekend. I think some of the Spurs fans are a bit pissed off at that because he won't play Maddison. But I've got a bit of an issue with the whole thing with James Maddison. And I do like Maddison, as everybody who watches the channel knows. I want us to sign him. But I saw this pop up. Now, obviously, everybody knew that the Spurs players were off ill and had illnesses and couldn't train and all that stuff. And Maddison, who we all know loves the darts because he does that daft celebration. So Ange let him go and watch the darts. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm glad that he did, because maybe they might have got a point or won the game if Maddison had a good night's rest, mind you. But if I was a Spurs manager and my player, one of my best players, hadn't been able to train because he was ill, the last thing I'd want him to do the night before a game is to get his gear on and go off and watch the darts. I'd rather he stayed at home and rested and was ready for the game when I needed him. Am I being an old fart there, Mark, or do you think I'm right to think that as a Premier League manager?
I'm kind of putting it into normal perspective. If you manage a team of people in your job and one of them rings in sick because they've not been well, and then you see them at an event like that, what's your conversation going to be like the next day with them? I'm sorry, but I'm kind of with you. That if you've not been well enough to train, if you've not been well enough to do that, then you're not well enough to go out in that social gathering and stuff. Yeah, exactly.
I think it shows a real weakness of discipline from Ange. I think I really do. I think his time is limited there, mate.
Yeah, in a normal scenario, if he'd not been ill and there weren't any problems and he'd gone, that's fine. I don't mind that, because I don't believe in this where you've got to be in bed by 9 sort of thing the night before for a game.
Dan says it might have been after the draw with Wolves, not the night before a game. Well, maybe you're right, Dan, but that was all I saw on the social media there, to be fair, mate. So it might very well. But I do think Ange is on borrowed time, mate. I think that's a safe bet, mate. That's an absolute safe bet. But we couldn't get away with doing Out of Toon, not talking about, according to Sky, the biggest game in the world, especially Pete Drury, who continues to be a pound shop Shakespeare, spouting out rivers of turd from his mouth in the game. So obviously Manchester United and Liverpool played. Manchester United somehow managed to get a draw, largely down to Trent Alexander-Arnold, who was dog shit in the game, despite being linked to moves to Real Madrid in the week. Now, it was a big talking point for Sky. They talked a lot about it, but Roy Keane, who is normally probably the voice of reason in the Sky Sports studios, comes out with some scathing one-liners. I do love Roy Keane as a pundit, to be fair. And he did say that there's talk about him going to Real Madrid, but he'd be going to Tranmere Rovers if he plays like this. And then Tranmere Rovers were so quick to tweet, "No, you're all right, Roy. Thanks, mate. We'll do without," which I thought was brilliant.
I thought it was a harsh thing on Rovers, to be fair. He was dreadful. Absolutely dreadful. And the clip you sent me earlier on, and if he's doing sort of its rounds on tour, he looks so lazy. And
he's just jogging around,
just getting around the pitch. There was no effort at all. He's. I mean, the argument about he's one of the best right back in the world. He's not even the best right back at that club.
No. Trippier's twice the right back.
Yeah,
Trippier's twice the right back he is, mate.
I mean, if I'm Madrid, I can do so much better than Trent Alexander-Arnold as a right back. And if I'm Liverpool, there's no way in God's earth I'm spending that amount of money to keep him at the club. I'd wave him out the door.
The way they were talking about him,
move him on.
Mate, the way they were talking about him was unbelievable. They were talking about him, like he was the best player in the world. I mean, can the kid whip a ball in? Of course he can. Is he dangerous from free kicks? Of course he is. But he couldn't mark a piece of paper if I give him a fucking pen to do it with. He's an awful defender. And he has been throughout his entire career. So many people kept saying, why isn't Klopp moving him into midfield? He played in midfield a couple of times for England, looked a lot more comfortable there. But people are talking about him in the same breath as Steven Gerrard. He's no way they can't lay Steven Gerrard's boots, man. Yeah. Steven Gerrard carried rank average Liverpool teams to trophies. Trent's not done that. Trent's played in some of the best Liverpool teams have been for the past 25 years. And, yes, he's played a key part in it. And don't get me wrong, Liverpool have made a massive fuck up by letting the 3 biggest players' contracts run down, which is mental, to say the very least. But the way Sky were talking about him, honestly, was absolutely nuts. It really, really was. And I think he'll go. I mean, but as you said, mate, Conor Bradley, go look at the tackle he put on Mbappe. You've got his replacement there already. Take the money and let him go. If Trent wants to go, let him go. But yeah, the Sky love fest for Trent Alexander-Arnold was a bit sickening, mate, to be honest with you. Senegal says he's the most overrated player in the world.
Yeah. I mean, there were those tweets as well after the game the other day where he'd hit that pass sort of inside out up the pitch, and you go, well, hang on, didn't somebody for Newcastle do almost exactly the same pass the day before? That wasn't given on. It was like, I think somebody tweeted, "Oh, this pass needs to be studied." And I was like, "Just go the day before. You see exactly. Yeah, it was brilliant. It was a brilliant pass. Don't get me wrong.
Bruno does 4 a game, mate.
It was the exact same pass the day before. I think it was Alexander Isak that hit one the sort of the day before.
Oh, he did to Lewis Hall. I think it was to Lewis Hall, actually.
Phenomenal pass. And so, look, yes, he's great with the ball at his feet. He can hit a pass like not many can, to be fair. But his defensive play is shocking. And putting him in a midfield role where he has to be aware of what's around him, he hasn't got a clue.
He'll fit in well at Real Madrid then, because if he can't defend for fucking tough, he'll be all right, because neither can any of them.
It suits them down to the ground, doesn't it? So, yeah.
It does, yeah. So let them go, because I'm sick of them talking about it, to be fair. But speaking of La Liga, the ridiculous nature that is Barcelona continues on and on. How these fuckers have not had a transfer ban placed on them is absolutely beyond me. So Barcelona plan to file a complaint to the Spanish government in their final attempt to register Dani Olmo, who they signed in the summer, and Paul Victor, because they're so much of a financial dumpster fire that they can't actually register the two players. But for Barcelona, it's the government's fault now and the league's fault now that Barcelona can't count properly. And no wonder these shithouses want the Super League so badly, because they are in so much financial destitution. How the fuck FIFA and UEFA have let these wanks sign these players in the first place is beyond me, Mark. I mean, if they win that case, I mean, Jesus Christ, what's the point in FFP and PSR?
But I know the rules are a little bit different in Spain, but still, I mean, the fact that they're allowed to bring in those players with the potential that they can't register them, I mean, that's just ridiculous. And
it makes no sense.
There is the potential that they end up losing them for nothing as well. So all that money spent to bring them in, and then they could potentially lose them for now, because those players then suddenly have contracts that
maybe we should, Chippers. Maybe we should, mate. Nicer weather.
The players have signed contracts that to play for the club that they're not going to be able to do. So is that breach of contract for them and stuff like that? So it's
the best bit I saw with that was, so those players could leave on a free transfer, and Barcelona would still have to pay their wages up to 2030. so effectively, Dani Olmo could go sign for Man City, get paid off Man City, and also get paid off Barcelona. So he could get paid by two clubs. I mean, if I'm Dani Olmo, I'm on the first plane to Manchester, mate.
Yeah, I'm waving bye-bye and I'll see you later. After that, I'm just, as great a club of Barcelona have been historically, it's horrendous to see the way things have been. And it's not the first time in the last couple of years that they've not been able to register players. I think they had problems registering Lewandowski, didn't they, when he first went, because they had to shift somebody on in order to allow him to be able to sign or to be registered. So, yeah.
Apparently, they're going to get rid of Rafinha. I'll take him at Newcastle all day long if we want to get rid of Rafinha. I'd love him at Newcastle.
He was in some form as well in this season. He was scoring goals for fun earlier in the year. So yeah, I mean, and he's again another one who's got Premier League experience, and I think would be an excellent sign.
It was Frankie de Jong that couldn't register. They couldn't play him, and I don't think they could play. Was it Pedri either? They couldn't play Pedri either. I think that the Spanish superstar, he couldn't play either. The young lad, it was either Gavi or Pedri. It was Gavi or Pedri.
So yeah, I think you're right with one of those. But look, it's a mess. And I say again, why are you allowed to sign those players when you're not able to register them?
It's crazy. Well, if Pep Guardiola wants to sort his Man City out, he should just take a bus over to Spain and nick half of Barcelona's squad and drive back to Manchester.
I've done that bus to Barcelona before. It's not fun.
Absolutely, he'd probably be much better at it. But from the greedy and ugly side of football, there is sometimes nice stories in football that come out that just remind you that not everyone's a greedy, leech, money-sucking bastard. And this came out from Football Factly on socials about Panathinaikos. So for those of you who don't remember, obviously George Baldock played for Panathinaikos, former Sheffield United player, tragically died. I think it was earlier on last year, wasn't it? And what they have done is on the 1st of January, they paid out his entire salary contract to George's widow, to raise the 1-year-old child. And there's also a charity match as well for the Baldock Family Plan in 2025 to bring additional income for his child, which is amazing from Panathinaikos. They didn't have to do that, and it just shows you that there is still some good in football. You know, they're not all horrible, soulless corporate bastards, Mark, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think that obviously there's elements in terms of they would have paid the contract anyway over time, but to have gone, look, we're going to pay it up now. To allow you to help bring up the little one and stuff is just one of those really good moves, and well done to them. And I'm sure I saw as well somebody had mentioned that I think Sheffield United planning on maybe doing a charity game as well. I mean, the incredible thing would be a Panathinaikos and Sheffield
match
United
between them.
game
Absolutely,
between the two.
Yeah, that'll probably be on the cards, I'd imagine, mate. Yeah, you can imagine the two clubs.
If that's not been thought of already, I think that would be an incredibly emotional day as well, wouldn't it? And and well done to them, because it's look, we laugh and we joke in this part of it, and sometimes there is the more serious side, but it's just a really good thing.
Yeah, as Dean said, it's a brilliant gesture. They didn't have to do that, and it does restore your faith in humanity a little bit there. So we'll finish on the last Out of Toon, which is a bit crazy, really. So this was a story that went on. Now, it was a friendly, so I have to say that as a bit of context. But so Ajax were playing Stuttgart in a friendly. I don't know why. I don't follow both those leagues very well. But Davy Klaassen, I think it was Everton for a period of time, wasn't he? So he got sent off for a tackle, which was never a red card. We watched it. It was just a late tackle. But he got sent off by the referee, and the referee didn't change his decision. The referee then went to speak to the managers, and the managers both agreed that it would have been better to keep it 11 versus 11. So even though David Klaassen got sent off, he was allowed to go back on the pitch and play. What is going on with the game, Mark? Friendly or not, when the guy gets a red card and it's not rescinded, but the ref just goes, "Oh, go on, just finish the game, mate." What's all that about?
I don't know. I'd say, like you say, it's a friendly. It's a peculiar story, isn't it? But
weird.
Like it's a friendly. It wasn't a red card to start with, but I do get it. If it's a red card, you're given a red card. They're not going to change their mind. He has to go off. But I sort of understand from both teams' perspective that they're going to get more out of an 11 versus 11 than they are from anything else, because in that midwinter sort of break that they have everywhere else, but here, that they want the fitness. They want to, they want those players to play in a good standard as well. I get that from the team's perspective that they want that, but yeah, I mean, if you haven't seen the challenge, go and watch a clip of it. It's not a red card.
It's just a late tackle, Chippers. It's a yellow card all day long. I mean, the scary thing was Mark said it could be an orange card, and it just made me think we're not too far away from sin bins, sponsored sin bins, where Sky Sports are probably interviewing somebody in the sin bin while they're having a 5-minute ban. You can imagine Jamie Carragher spitting all over the microphone, asking somebody if they're regret that challenge.
On the subject of Sky Sports, and it's a plea, can we please stop Gary Neville commenting on a Manchester United game, because the noises he makes when they score goals, I mean, it sounds like I'm watching dodgy sites when I'm, here we go. You call the accusational comments in the chat, but
here we go again.
Awful. I mean, it's just ridiculous. I mean, what normal human being makes those noises? Like, do you know what I mean? It's just
very strange. But
honestly,
I mean, if we're making campaigns about Sky Sports, can we please have a sponsored silence of Pete Drury for the entire fucking year? is my request, because he is the worst commentator I've ever heard in my life. He is dreadful. The bollocks that comes out of that bloke's mouth is incredible. It really is, man. Honestly. I've never heard anything like it. It's dreadful.
Yeah, absolutely. And just want to pick up on one of the comments. I think you've just put one in the comments about it being Cardiff. I think it was it not Nantes that were the ones that were trying to.
It might have been Nantes, but I know it was Cardiff that he signed for. It was Cardiff that he signed for. Yeah.
So it was a mess between the two of them.
It's awful.
So I'm just, that's an awful one to get involved in.
That is terrible. Soulless, mate. Absolutely soulless. But I think that's us all done there. Thank you very much, Dean, for that lovely comment, mate. Yes, we are all done for this evening. Thank you so much, guys. Really appreciate all the comments and the love. It really helps the episode flow. And as I mentioned at the start, if you haven't already, smash subscribe. Come and help get us to that 10K as quick as we can. Like the video too. Help the channel grow. We are going to be back tomorrow, so you don't have to wait too long for your Evermore fix. We will be back tomorrow with a post-match after hopefully Newcastle have battered Arsenal at the Emirates and pissed off Arteta and watched him cry his tits out again. And we will be smiling, and I will be smiling like a Cheshire cat again, guys, in the comments there if we do manage to get a result against Arsenal. But have a great evening. Keep it Evermore, guys. Tomorrow we'll see you in the live chat. Have a belter. See you later.
Take care.